So dear learners, in this particular video we will start with discussing about the software process activities in detail. Okay. So in our previous videos we have already discussed about the software process activities. So basically there are four fundamental activities that we have listed out. The very first one was that is software specification, then software design and development, then software validation and software evolution. So these are the four fundamental software process activities. So from this particular video onwards we will discuss one by one. Okay. So in this video, so we will be focusing on the first software process activity, that is software specification. Okay. So just have a look at that. So before going to start this anyway, normally along with these four process activities, that is whatever the process activities that we need to carry out for the overall development of our software, along with that normally there are many other real software processes are interleaved, that is sequence of technical, collaborative and managerial activities with the overall goal of what? The specifying, designing, implementing and testing a software system. So it means to say that okay, apart from these four fundamental activities, okay, we need to carry out, there are many other activities that will be interleaved, means concurrently we need to carry out while designing and developing what? Any software as a product. That is the first point. And second thing is these four basic activities what we discussed here, means listed here, that is specification, this design and development, validation and evolution. Is it clear? Okay. So these are all organized differently in different development process, because see there in the previous videos we have already discussed the different software process models. For example, say in waterfall model, in the waterfall model what happened, these activities have been carried out sequentially. See there. Okay. So one by one, as phase wise we carried out all these activities, whereas in incremental development what happened actually, so there the same process activities have been carried out concurrently. See, the only thing is okay, activities may be same, the way of carrying out those activities may be what? Different, that you need to keep it in your mind. Okay. So let us start with the very first activity, the software specification. Okay. So software specification is also very popularly known as requirement analysis. Just do remember, don't get confused with all these words. Here the specifications are nothing but what? Requirements. Requirements are nothing but what? Services. Services are nothing but what? The functionalities. Okay. Means the services, functionalities that the software is supposed to provide to the end users. So as a IT industry, why the companies are going to develop the software? So their goal is to what? The software is to be developed for some set of end users for some purpose. See, for example, say if some organization is running one business, if so many people are working in that particular business, okay, the software is developed for to run that particular business. Then who are the end users? All the employees who are all working in that organization are what? The end users. For example, say banking software. Okay. So there are different variety of people who are all working in a bank with different positions and roles. Is it clear? So banking software means it has been developed to fulfill what? All the functionalities and services that bank is supposed to provide, that will be given through what? The banking software. Is it clear? So just have a look at the definition here. So software specification, it is a process of what? Establishing what services are required and the constraint on the system's operation and development. So basically software specification is nothing but what? It is a process of establishing what services are required for whom? To the end user. Services are nothing but what? The functionalities that the software is supposed to provide. Along with that services, see there, another important thing, we need to also establish what? The constraints. Is it clear? So what are the constraints here? Constraints are nothing but what? Some set of rules, regulations, okay, that need to be fulfilled at the time of what? Developing any software there. So either it may be related to the budget constraint. See that just carrying, so don't think that if I know how to carry out the software specification, design, development, coding and everything, I cannot build a software. Okay. So along with that all these activities, okay, along with the services that I am going to define, I should also look into the constraint, like for example say budget as a constraint, whether I am having sufficient money to invest on that or not. Okay, I need to look into my human resource, whether I am having the sufficient number of skilled employees are there in my company or not to build this software. Is it clear? Okay. See, for example, say when you want to build any house, if you are having cement and bricks, can you start building the house? It's not possible. Apart from that, there are many other formalities that you need to follow. You have to take the permission. Okay, you need to look into your budget, and you have to consult the engineer. See there, means there are so many constraints which are going to affect your overall process is concerned. The same thing is here also. Okay. Now, this software specification is very popularly known as the requirements engineering process. See there, just do remember this word there, requirements engineering process. See there. Okay. So here collecting, analyzing all the and defining the requirement itself is a one big task here in our software engineering. Okay. So that is why it is called as what, requirements engineering process. So just here is a diagram of the requirement engineering process. Just go through this. So what are the different steps in requirement engineering process? So the very first step is what? Feasibility study. We have to perform what? The feasibility study. Then followed by requirement elicitation and analysis. Then we have to perform requirement specification. Then we have to perform requirement validation. So you need to carry 4 different activities under what? Requirements engineering process. So what is requirement engineering process? Requirement engineering process is nothing but it's a software specification. Means here we are going to collect what? The variety of services or requirements or functionalities that the software is supposed to provide along with its constraints. That is nothing but what? The requirement engineering process. So now we will go through these steps one by one. Okay. Just try to understand the meaning of all these steps here. So just have a look at there. My very first step is feasibility study. Okay. So what is the meaning of feasibility study here? It is technically and financially feasible to build the system. See there. When I am going to start this feasibility study, I will come to know that. Okay. So imagine whenever any software company is going to build any new software, okay, immediately it won't take the decision and it will start developing a software. Its first step in requirement specification is what? It is going to perform the feasibility study. Okay. So today if I am to develop this particular software, okay, how much money that I need to invest? How many people which are means people who skilled people who are required, whether I am having the the current technologies with me or not. Is it clear? And today if I develop this software and tomorrow if I release that, whether I am to get the profit or not. Okay. What about my company brand name? Okay. Who are all the competitors? What about the quality of my software when you compare it with what? The others. So you have to think of in terms of both technically and what? Financially. So always do remember the output of this feasibility study will always tell you whether you need to go ahead with the software development or not. Means whether you need to go with this project or you can what? Drop the project. So that is the output of what? Feasibility study. If everything looks fine, then you can start what? The next step. Otherwise, you can drop your overall project plan here only. Okay, that is called feasibility study. Second one is what? Requirements elicitation and analysis. Now see there, if your feasibility study is positive, okay, means it is okay, then you can start with what? Requirement elicitation and analysis. So here what we are going to do? So here just have a look at that. What do the system stakeholders require or what expect from the system? Means exactly here in this second step, the name itself indicates requirements elicitation. Elicitation means what? Extracting or collecting the requirements from whom? From different stakeholders. So who are the stakeholders here? Stakeholders are the end users. Means all the people who are directly or indirectly related to your software to be get developed. They are called as what? Stakeholder. See, for example, see if you take ATM, it's a software based system, both hardware plus software. Can you tell me who are all the stakeholders here? See, if I am a bank account holder, then I am also a stakeholder. Okay, the person who is sitting in the bank, he is also a stakeholder. Okay, the cashier is also what, stakeholder. Why? Because whatever the thing that you are going to update here, it will be reflected there. Okay, so even the people who are maintaining that ATM, they are also what, stakeholder. Okay, so that maintenance engineer means the person who is sitting at the server where that ATM is get controlled, he is also what, a stakeholder. See there, if you start thinking of, you will be start getting a different variety of what, users. They are all known as what, the stakeholders. So in requirement elicitation and analysis, we need to collect and gather the variety of requirements, okay, services, functionalities by such kind of stakeholders. We need to conduct the meeting, we need to discuss with them, okay, and after collecting the requirements, we need to what, analyze. We have to analyze the requirements. Okay, so whether what type of requirement it is, okay, it belongs to whom, what is the priority of that requirement, that we need to what, analyze. Is it clear? So once my requirements have been collected from the stakeholders, then I will go with what, the third step. What is that? Requirements specification. See there, here actually I am going to specify my requirements. So here what is happening, defining the requirements in detail with specific formats. Okay, so whatever the requirement that you have collected in the second step, they are all what, raw data, because the requirements have been randomly collected from what, from the end users, and now you have to convert these raw data of requirements into what, a technically sound data in a specific formats. That is called as what, requirements specification. Okay, so how to write the requirement, that's very important here. Anyway, we are going to learn this in a separate chapter, that requirement analysis itself. There is a separate chapter on requirement specification, that we will get into depth in the later videos. Is it clear? So basically in requirement specification, all the raw data of the requirements will be converted into two types. Means one is user requirements. User requirement means these are the requirements defined at the abstract level for what, for the end users. Okay, the same user requirement will also be written in terms of what, system requirements. So system requirements means these are the requirements which have been written with technical specifications, because for the engineers or for the developers, okay, user requirements are not helpful because they are at the abstract level. Okay, they want exactly the technical oriented requirements which have been defined in a particular format. Okay, so that will be done under what, requirement specification. Then after specifying these requirements in terms of user requirements and system requirements, now my last job is to what, validate the requirements. Requirements validation. So validation is nothing but what, checking for the requirements. Okay, so in requirement validation, at the last step, we are going to perform three things here. One is I need to check for the realism. I have to check for what, realism, and second one is consistency, and third one is completeness. See there, every requirement which has been defined, okay, that should undergo three types of what, checking. One is we need to check whether the defined requirement is realistic or not, that is realism. Okay, second thing, we need to check whether the defined requirement is consistent or not, and the third one is whether the defined requirement is complete or not. These three we need to check while performing what, validation. Okay, just try to understand what you mean by the realism, realistic. See, always whenever we will define any requirements for any system, the requirement should be realistic, means it should be implementable. It's very important. See there, and try to understand here, my every requirement should be what, implementable. When you go and approach the stakeholder, and if the stakeholders give some requirements directly, you cannot accept that yes, we will implement this. See, for example, say ATM machine is there. As an end user, I will give my requirement. Okay, I want to withdraw the money by sitting at the home. How come it is possible? I have to go to the ATM, I have to insert my ATM card, then only I will get the money. So my requirement is not realistic, because in real time it's not possible to what, implement. Okay, and second one is what, consistency. Always whenever we are defining the requirements, there should be a consistency. And always do remember, requirements are not independent. One requirement is always dependent on what? The another requirement. That we need to understand here, especially in software engineering. Okay? Whenever you define any number of requirements for any software system, those requirements are not independent. Every requirement is dependent on what? Another requirement. Is it clear? See, for example, say, imagine I am developing one app, okay, with high quality of user interface and lot of functionalities, okay, and if I am going to define that I will be using some Android Studio for that, okay, at the same time I will say that, okay, my RAM should not be say some not more than 1 GB. See, how come it's possible? When you are developing with a high end technologies, okay, means different new technologies, okay, depending on the same thing, your hardware component should be what? Made available. So, you cannot define both as a controversy statements over there. Is it clear? Okay. So, that should not happen. That is what consistency. Then last one is completeness. See, always do remember the requirement should be defined completely. Okay, there should not be any confusion for the developers. For example, say I am developing one some security software. In that I will mention if something goes wrong, okay, the end user should be given some sort of intimation. See there, if I define like this, if something goes wrong, the end user should be given some sort of intimation. See, the requirement is not completely defined here. Here it is not told that what type of intimation that user is expecting. For example, if something goes wrong, whether that intimation should be in terms of alarm, whether that intimation should be in terms of sending an SMS, or whether that intimation should be in terms of giving a call to the mobile phone immediately. What type of exactly the intimation which is required for the end user, that we are not mentioning there. So, that is why my requirement should be always complete. That is very important. So, otherwise there will be it leads to a lot of confusion. Is it clear? So, I hope that all of you understood this requirement engineering process. So, here it has to undergo with 4 different steps: feasibility study, requirement elicitation and analysis, requirement specification, and requirements validation. Okay. So, this is very important topic and also most important even for the examination point of view also. Okay. Thank you.